Have you ever walked into a room and felt something shift? No one said anything. No one needed to. A glance was enough, cold, delayed, avoiding. You smiled. They didn't. You tried to be kind, but the silence got heavier. It's not confrontation that hurts. It's confusion. Because deep down, you're wondering, did I do something wrong, or do they just hate me for being me? The answer is darker than you think. Most of the time, people don't hate you for what you did. They hate you for who you've become: strong, free, unapologetic. And that threatens something fragile in them. So they punish you, silently. Let's decode this together. There's a quiet kind of hate, the kind that never raises its voice, never calls you out directly, and never starts a fight. Instead, it waits in silence. It slips into the pauses between conversations. It sharpens in the way they don't look at you anymore. And it grows in the space where connection used to live. This kind of hate is harder to face than anger, because it doesn't come with an explanation. It just appears in the people you thought were close, in the ones you barely know, and sometimes in yourself. That lingering doubt. Why do they treat me like this? What changed? And when you can't find a reason, the mind turns inward. You blame yourself. You shrink. But maybe the truth isn't about your flaws. Maybe it's about what you represent. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't always need a reason to dislike you. Sometimes, your presence alone is enough. Your success, your confidence, your peace. The way you walk into a room without needing approval. The way you say no without guilt. The fact that you're healing while they're still hiding their wounds. That kind of quiet strength, it threatens those who haven't faced their own reflection yet. And instead of dealing with their discomfort, they project it onto you. But once you understand this pattern, everything shifts. You're no longer confused, you're aware. And that awareness is the first form of self-protection. So in this video, we're going to break down 10 real reasons why people might secretly hate you. Not because you're a bad person, but because you've become someone they can no longer control, predict, or keep small. Some of these reasons will surprise you. Some will hurt. But all of them will help you stop internalizing what was never yours to carry. Let's begin. It starts subtly. They used to cheer for you, or at least they pretended to. Now, every time you share good news, the room goes quiet. They smile, but there's no warmth in it. They say, "I'm happy for you," but their eyes say, "Why not me?" And deep down you feel it. Your success didn't just change your life. It changed the way they look at you. This is the first reason people secretly hate you. Envy and jealousy. These emotions don't scream, they corrode. They don't push you, they pull you down, little by little. What makes envy so dangerous is that it often hides behind politeness. It dresses up in backhanded compliments or silent withdrawal. It's not about what you did wrong. It's about what you did right and how that made them feel wrong. Your achievements, whether big or small, are mirrors to people who haven't reached their own. And instead of letting those reflections inspire them, they crack the mirror. They might say you're lucky, that you had help, that you don't deserve it. But none of that is about you. It's about the parts of themselves they haven't accepted. And envy rarely stays still. It festers. It leaks into gossip, passive aggression, or subtle sabotage. They start rooting for your failure not because you're cruel, but because your growth reminds them they're standing still. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't worry about the opinions of others. They are not within your control." Envy is not your burden. It belongs to the person who feels it. You are not responsible for their discomfort. You are not required to dim your light so others feel more comfortable in their shadows. And yet, The attack doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it shows up from someone much closer. That brings us to the second reason people quietly turn on you. They project their own insecurities onto you. Let's say someone feels inadequate in their job, their appearance, their relationships. Instead of facing that pain honestly, they find someone nearby to become the symbol of what they lack. That person is often you. You're confident? That must mean you're arrogant. You're focused? They'll call you selfish. You have boundaries? You think you're better than us. In psychology, this is called projection, but in real life, it just feels like confusion, guilt, or misplaced shame. They put their emotions in your hands and expect you to hold them like they're yours. Seneca warned about this dynamic centuries ago. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. But the Stoics didn't stop there. They taught us to draw a line between what belongs to us and what doesn't. Their fear isn't your fault. Their story isn't your responsibility. And their hatred, it's not a truth, it's a wound. You cannot fix people who attack what they're unwilling to face, but you can stop shrinking just to make them feel safe. Envy and projection are often the first signs of hidden hostility. Not loud, not obvious, but quietly corrosive, especially if you internalize them. The key is not to fight back, but to stop believing that you caused their darkness. You didn't. You were just the first one to step into the light. You didn't attack them. You didn't argue. You just lived your truth quietly, consistently. And yet, they pulled away. What changed? Here's the third reason people secretly hate you. Your values challenge their beliefs. Most people don't want to question their worldview. They want agreement. They want validation, not contrast. So, when your values don't match theirs, it's not just a disagreement. It feels like a threat. You believe in honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. They believe in keeping the peace, even if it means living a lie. You chase growth. They chase safety, even if it stagnates them. Suddenly, your presence becomes offensive, not because you're loud, but because you make them see what they've avoided. You are a mirror, and not everyone is ready for their reflection. People often attach their identity to their values. So if your values don't align, they see it as a personal rejection. They feel judged, even if you never said a word. Because deep down, they've already started to doubt themselves. You just reminded them. Epictetus once said, "Every person acts according to what they believe is good." So when your definition of good is different, they might assume you think they're wrong, even when you don't. That assumption festers. It turns into defensiveness, then distance, then quiet disdain. And that's only one form of subtle rejection. There's another more cultural than personal. The fourth reason people quietly dislike you is this. You don't conform to social expectations. You didn't follow the script. You didn't go to the right school, get the right job, marry the right person at the right time. You didn't sacrifice your joy to fit inside someone else's picture of success. And for that, they judge you. Not because you're wrong, but because you make them question whether they're free. You remind them of what they gave up. Art for money, curiosity for credentials, freedom for approval. Your life is not perfect, but it's yours. And in a society obsessed with control, that kind of authenticity is threatening. You live on your terms, and they call it selfish. You set boundaries, and they call it disrespect. You walk away, and they call you disloyal. But none of those labels are about you. They're about the discomfort of watching someone break rules they felt forced to obey. And here's what Stoicism reminds us. Living in agreement with nature means living in agreement with your nature, not society's expectations, not your family's image, not your culture's checklist. People hate what they can't label, what they can't predict, what they secretly wish they had the courage to become. So the next time they scoff, whisper, or turn cold, ask yourself, are you being punished for doing something wrong, or simply for doing something different? You try to explain yourself. You say it calmly. You share what hurt you, and they stare back, blankly. No recognition, no effort to understand. Just silence, or worse, a shrug. This is the fifth reason people quietly hate you: lack of empathy and emotional maturity. In a perfect world, we'd all try to understand each other. But in reality, many people aren't taught how, or simply don't want to. Empathy requires effort. It demands stepping outside yourself and walking into someone else's experience, even if only for a moment. But some people refuse to leave their own heads. They see the world through the narrow lens of me, and anything outside that becomes a threat, a burden, or a bother. They don't hate you because you hurt them. They hate you because your emotions inconvenience them. Your pain feels like pressure. Your boundaries feel like betrayal. Your honesty feels like accusation. So instead of listening, they dismiss. Instead of softening, they defend. Instead of reflecting, they reject. They'd rather accuse you of being too sensitive than admit they lack depth. This isn't always malicious. Sometimes, it's a result of emotional underdevelopment. They never learn to sit with discomfort not theirs, not anyone else's. So when you bring vulnerability into the room, it becomes too much. And what's too much becomes wrong. Seneca once wrote, "You must learn to be kind to the unkind, not because they deserve kindness, but because you deserve peace." This doesn't mean accepting cruelty. It means recognizing the source of it and choosing not to internalize it. You can't force someone to feel for you. You can't teach someone maturity with a single conversation. And you can't build connection with someone who refuses to meet you halfway. But you can stop trying to get emotional depth from a shallow well. You can stop handing your truth to people who treat it like an inconvenience. You can stop bleeding for people who never learned to care. Their lack of empathy is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their walls. And the thicker those walls, the more your humanity will feel like noise. The more self-aware you become, the louder your presence will feel to those who've numbed themselves. And they will blame you for that discomfort. Because taking responsibility for their own emotional gaps is too much, too messy, too vulnerable. So they hate you quietly, indirectly, not because you did anything wrong, but because you reminded them of everything they haven't grown into yet. And that is something their pride refuses to forgive. At first, they admired you. You pushed hard. You showed up. You did the work. You stayed consistent even when no one was watching. And then, something shifted. The compliments stopped. The energy changed. The people who once clapped for you started going silent. Or worse, started talking behind your back. The sixth reason people quietly hate you: they see you as competition. It's subtle at first. A side glance when you speak. A sarcastic "must be nice" when you share something good. They joke about your ambition, but it stings. And deep down, you know, you've stopped being someone they support and started being someone they compare themselves to. That comparison doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from insecurity, from the belief that your success means less for them, that if you're growing, they're falling behind, that if you're winning, they're losing. And instead of using that discomfort as fuel to evolve, they turn it into resentment. You're not their friend anymore. You're a threat to their self-image. They begin to diminish your work. They question your intentions. They secretly hope you'll fail, Not because they hate you, but because they hate what they feel about themselves when they look at you. Epictetus reminded us, never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Your worth isn't rooted in applause. And your growth is not a threat. It's a statement of who you've become. Still, competition isn't the only force that turns admiration into animosity. Sometimes, the hatred comes when you stop playing along. The seventh reason people begin to resent you. You set boundaries they don't like. In the beginning, you said yes. You gave more than you should have. You tolerated the jokes, the lateness, the emotional dumping. You kept peace at the expense of your own. And then, one day, you said no. You said, that doesn't work for me. You pulled back. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped being available on demand. And that's when the mask came off. People don't always hate you for how you treat them. They hate you for changing how you let them treat you. Boundaries threaten entitlement. When someone is used to walking through doors you never locked, closing one feels like betrayal. But it's not betrayal. It's maturity. It's the realization that love, without respect, isn't love. It's convenience. Seneca wrote, "He who respects himself is safe from others." Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's clarity. And the ones who hate you for it were never honoring the relationship in the first place. They may call you cold. They may call you distant. They may twist your actions to paint you as the villain. Let them. You're not here to shrink. You're here to breathe, to protect your energy, to honor your space, and to live in truth, not performance. Because if someone only loved you when you were easy to use, their love was never real. They liked you when you stayed small, when you were unsure, when you needed their approval to feel valid, when you laughed off disrespect, downplayed your needs, and apologized for existing too boldly. But then you grew. You started healing. You stopped explaining. You began walking into rooms without shrinking. And suddenly, the people who once supported you started resenting you. The eighth reason people begin to secretly hate you. You outgrew the role they assigned you. Whether they realize it or not, most people place others into emotional roles. You're the quiet one, the helper, the easygoing friend, the one who never says no, the one who makes them feel smart, in control, or needed. But when you evolve, when you start rewriting the script, you don't just disrupt your life, you disrupt theirs. Because now, you're no longer predictable. You're no longer a supporting character in their story. You've stepped into your own. And for people who were secretly benefiting from your silence, your compliance, or your struggle, that's unacceptable. They'll say you've changed, that you've become distant, selfish, or full of yourself. But what they really mean is, you stopped being easy to manage. People don't always want you to heal, because your healing forces them to face what they haven't. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your clarity reveals their confusion. So rather than rising with you, they pull away. Or worse, they pull you down. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that fits their comfort zone. You don't owe continuity when you're called to growth. You don't owe guilt when you choose alignment over approval. When people resist your evolution, they're not mourning your change. They're mourning their control. But your job isn't to stay in a box they built for you. Your job is to expand, to own your story, to define yourself not by their expectations, but by your own truth. Growth isn't betrayal. Outgrowing who you were and who they needed you to be is not a sin. It's a sign that you're alive. that you're listening to something deeper than obligation. And yes, it comes with loss. Some connections won't survive your expansion, but the ones that do will love you for who you are now, not who you used to be when it was convenient for them. You thought your connection was solid. You showed up. You were honest. You never spoke ill behind their back. You were loyal even when things got quiet. But then one day, you heard it. A rumor. A twisted story. A version of you that felt like a stranger, but somehow, it stuck. The ninth reason people secretly hate you. They believe gossip more than they trust you. Gossip is fast. Faster than truth. Faster than experience. Faster than memory. And when someone is already unsure about who you are, it only takes one whisper to push them over the edge. They don't ask you. They don't check the facts. They just shift. A colder tone, a subtle distance, a quiet punishment for something you didn't do. Because here's the hard truth. People often believe what feels familiar, not what's real. And if they've already projected their insecurities onto you, then any story that paints you as unkind, fake, or arrogant makes emotional sense to them. In a strange way, they want the gossip to be true, because it justifies their resentment. It makes them feel righteous for pulling away. Gossip is not just idle talk, it's emotional manipulation by proxy. Someone else plants the seed. They water it with doubt. And suddenly, you're alone. But remember, you are not the version of you that lives in their head. You are not the echo of someone else's fear. You are not the villain in a story you never got to tell. So let them talk. Let them believe what they need to. Your truth isn't threatened by distortion, it's revealed through endurance. Still, gossip isn't the only quiet poison in human connection. Sometimes, hatred grows, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't give. The 10th reason people grow cold toward you. They feel unseen or unrecognized around you. This is the most subtle and sometimes the most painful. You never meant to hurt them. You were just focused, tired, distracted, living. But to them, it felt like neglect, like invisibility. They supported you, now they feel forgotten. They opened up, now they feel unheard. They gave, and now they feel like it didn't matter. This resentment isn't loud. It simmers. And if left unspoken, it becomes a quiet withdrawal. A hidden score they keep in their head. A silent, "you owe me," that you never knew existed. And the more you thrive, the deeper their wound grows. Not because of your success, but because they don't feel part of it. You didn't push them away, but you didn't pull them close either. And to someone already struggling with worth, that absence becomes a rejection. But Stoicism reminds us of this. You are not responsible for how others interpret your silence. You can live with integrity and still be misunderstood. You can care and still fall short of someone's emotional scoreboard. So what do? You stay kind, but not apologetic. You stay open, but not guilty. You acknowledge the gap, but don't collapse into it. Because their desire to be seen is valid. But your life is not a performance for their validation. Not everyone will celebrate you. Not everyone will come with you. And not everyone will understand the cost of the growth they never witnessed. Let's go back to the beginning. That moment when you walked into the room and felt it shift. The cold glance, the quiet tension, that invisible wall you couldn't explain. You asked yourself, did I do something wrong? But now, you know the truth. You were never the problem. You were the trigger. You reminded them of something unfinished in themselves. A failure they haven't forgiven. A truth they haven't faced. A version of life they're too afraid to choose. And when people aren't ready to confront their shadows, they cast them on others. So they hate your strength because it reveals their weakness. They resent your peace because it clashes with their chaos. They attack your boundaries because it forces them to notice theirs. They gossip, withdraw, and twist the narrative, because facing you means facing themselves. But Stoicism teaches us something timeless. You cannot control who misunderstands you. You can only control how you carry yourself through that misunderstanding. You do not need to chase approval. You do not need to explain your light to those committed to darkness. You do not need to shrink, soften, or perform. You just need to remain rooted in what's real. And what's real is that your integrity matters more than their acceptance. Your peace is worth more than their applause. Your path, as imperfect as it is, belongs to you, not to them. Yes, some people will secretly hate you, but that hatred has more to do with their inner conflict than your outer behavior. You don't need to hate them back. You don't even need to prove them wrong. You just need to stay the course, to live with dignity, to walk in quiet strength, and to let your life, not your explanations, be the answer. So if any part of this message spoke to you, write one word in the comments: peacefulness. Not just as a sign you watched until the end, but as a reminder that even in a world of noise, gossip, and projection, you can still choose calm. You can still choose clarity. You can still choose you. And if this helped you reconnect with that inner clarity, subscribe and stay on this journey with us. Because sometimes the most stoic act is simply refusing to be shaken by what was never yours to carry.